What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Half Street High Heat, episode 7 of season 4. And it is March 20th when we were recording this, and your Washington Nationals are dead. They are dead. Nothing happened. And not that we should have expected anything different, but they had a chance. They didn't take it. And now they are dead. Absolutely dead. 2022 season does not matter. We're gearing up for 2023 here on Half Street High Heat. But I am Nick. You can follow me on Twitter at NatsMoose. I am joined by both my colleagues as we continue on with ranking season. Ryan at We Are All Shaq and Trey at Reverse, 2 S's. As tonight we tackle the top 15 outfielders in baseball. We're combining them all into just outfield rather than going position by position, because there are some guys that can play the corners or play all three, or they're just utility guys in general. So it's much easier just to combine them into one outfield spot. But that's why we're doing top 15 tonight instead of top 10. So that way, we're not leaving too many good guys off. There are some guys we inevitably had to leave off, but, leads to a better conversation. But before we get into that, fellas, how we doing? The Nats did not sign anyone noteworthy, unfortunately. So how are we feeling heading into the rest of spring training and the season just about 2 weeks away?
Disappointed.
Especially after Story what Dream is dead.
Trevor Story Dream is dead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be looking at the individual performances this year. Every team in the NL East except for the Nats got better this offseason. So
even fucking Heyman was saying that.
Yeah, we might only win less than 60 games in this division, honestly. So just looking at individual performances this year, try to take the positives away from those.
Like, I get what Heyman was doing, because obviously he's a Boris puppet and he's trying to basically troll the Nats into signing someone, which I respect, because that's what we do as well. But it was just it was tough when when you saw that tweet come out and everyone's like, oh, Nats fans and Marlins fans pointing at each other. I was like, no, we're pointing at ourselves.
It's us.
Yeah, they're 100% talking about us. So that was not fun. And the Nats bootlickers are having a field day because their team didn't spend any money that wasn't, whatever. Nat or Ryan, how you feeling about the Nats?
Yeah, they're gonna suck, but that's okay. It's pretty exciting though, because a lot of teams in the league are going all in, and that's fun. So you kind of got 7 or 8 teams that just have absolutely loaded lineups. Look, DH goes into effect. Everyone goes out and starts adding pieces because, hey, more offense. So I'm pretty excited about that. Bad time to be a prospect, though. If you're a pitcher trying to make your way, it kind of sucks. The Orioles are finally calling up their good pitching prospects, and the AL East is just absolutely loaded. And the Nats are going to see what their young guys got. And 2 of the top 3 lineups in the National League are in the NL East. So it's a good time for young guys. Just not going to be very fun for them.
No, it is not. One thing I did want to ask you guys about, and I guess I'll recap some of the big signings really quick in case anyone forgot, because I know football free agency has kind of overshadowed some of the baseball news. Rocky signed Chris Bryant. I don't know if that happened before the last episode. Trevor Story signed with the Red Sox, 6 years, $140 million. Kind of an interesting deal, but he said he would consider playing out of position, and Xander Bogaerts likely going to opt out after next year. So we'll see. And we talked about Xander Bogaerts when he ranked shortstops. He's not the best defensive shortstop, so a position change might have been coming for him anyways. But it'll be interesting to see how that situation unfolds, and if the Red Sox effectively signed his replacement a year early. I don't know. Carlos Correa, probably the most interesting deal of the weekend, signs a 3-year, $105 or so million deal with the Twins, but opt-outs after the first 2 years. So effectively a 1-year, $34 million deal for him. And he's going to probably try again next year, but it was the Twins of all teams. They've made a bunch of kind of low-key moves all offseason, but that was obviously the biggest. So it'll be interesting to see if Minnesota can finally get over the hump and win a playoff series for once. Phillies made a couple moves. They signed Kyle Schwarber, but also signed Nicholas Castellanos. So they are going all in on offense and just ignoring the pitching. I almost respect it because they might go from 82 wins to like 86. And maybe that's enough to get them in the playoffs, but they're not going to have any pitching. So it's going to be funny. Anything else that I missed?
Not that I think of.
Freeman signed with the Dodgers.
Oh, Freeman signed with the
did
Dodgers.
sign with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
and as a soap opera.
Yeah, that one was interesting because the Braves basically just did him dirty. Freeman probably did overplay his hand, but it's free agency. Like you're gonna shoot high, and I mean, I'm never gonna blame the player for trying to like, cash in, but the Braves are just like no. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they didn't even contact him at all. That's just, I mean, at least say something.
The way his deal is structured too, it has deferrals, but if he's traded, the Dodgers don't have to pay the deferrals. It was like weirdly structured, probably intelligently structured. So maybe the Dodgers move Freddie Freeman at some point. I don't know. I don't know what the Dodgers farm system's looking like, if they have a first baseman in the wings or whatever. But interesting deal there. And then a couple of like minor pitching moves. Zach Greinke returns to the Royals, which is kind of a good story. He's most likely going to finish his career there. Danny Duffy to the Dodgers. I mean, who aren't the Dodgers signing? I think Tyler Anderson.
I was about to say.
So whatever.
All the 1-year guys.
Whatever pitchers were left are now on the Dodgers. Angels signed like Archie Bradley. Oh, Braves signed Kenley Jansen. That was kind of a big story too. But
Jorge Soler, Marlins.
Oh, Jorge
another
Soler,
opt-out
Marlins.
deal.
Yeah, a lot of opt-out deals.
Love those deals.
But back to my question. It feels like a lot of these teams that all right, let me back up. So the guaranteed tankers, right? The teams that are actively not trying. The Orioles, the Pirates, the Guardians, the A's, the Reds. Probably that's definitive right now. The Rockies were in there, but it feels like they just wanted to sign one big name guy so that way they could say, oh, look, we tried. And that was going to be my question. It feels like these teams that normally wouldn't be considered a contender are just trying to go after that one signing so they can, for the next negotiations or whatever, they'll be like, oh, look, we signed this guy this year. And I'm like, what? I mean, just because you sign one guy doesn't mean you're actively trying. So it felt kind of disingenuous to me. I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Like, why are the Rockies signing Chris Bryant? Not that Chris Bryant's bad. I wanted him too, but the Rockies have nothing. And granted, the Twins are a little bit different because they're trying, but I don't know. It seems so weird to me to see what teams were in on it and what teams weren't. So I don't know. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
A lot of that has to do with the anti-tanking measures that are in effect.
Right.
As soon as those were being mentioned in the CBA, you knew you're going to get random teams just signing guys just to like say, hey, look, we're not tanking, even though they're only going to win like 56 games. So it's a lot of stuff playing into that as well. But opt-outs are very friendly, pro-player friendly. So guys like those as well. Another very interesting tidbit, though, that isn't being really reported with player contracts right now, that is happening with the new CBA. And when a guy is traded, instead of it being calculated by AAV with the contract hit the new team is going to take, it's now done by cash owed. So guys that have backloaded contracts are going to be kind of screwed like that, or teams that are kind of smart are going to start structuring contracts the way that we saw the Dodgers do. So if you try to trade a player later in his career, you're not going to be kind of stuck with him just because a lot of teams are going to backload contracts. Because like, look at the Nats, Patrick Corbin, he's gotten 23, 24, 35 mil left. So like, that's going to be kind of interesting to trade as well. But no, just some of the stuff that we're kind of seeing that you're pointing out, Nick, is just impacts of the new CBA happening and anti-tanking measures and all the very interesting fine print things that teams are going to try to do the bare minimum to get around.
Yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to. And the bare minimum, like that's the perfect way to put it. It's doing just enough to where you can say, oh, we followed the rules. And for teams like the A's and the Reds, maybe it's in terms of, oh, we sold off, so give us time or something. We're not ready to sign. But like the Orioles being in on Carlos Correa, the Reds trying to sign Castellanos after, they traded away a huge chunk of their core. It was just, and then obviously I brought up the Rockies.
Well, the Orioles
after Bryant.
The Orioles with Correa honestly makes sense.
I was about to say, I like that one.
Correa was the guy to do it with,
a
but
lot of sense.
I mean, the Orioles literally didn't make any other signing all off season. Like, that's kind of my point.
Well, they're gonna bring up the Orioles have the second best farm system in baseball. Everyone craps on them, but their farm system is loaded, and all those guys are gonna come up. So obviously they don't really have anything at shortstop going on. So hey, let's go get Correa, be our franchise player for the next 10 years. So that was a pretty good, makes sense for them. But Correa kind of put himself in a bad situation. He switched agencies during the middle of the lockout. So if he accepted any offer that he got pre-lockout, which was all of his 10-year deals, he would have to pay 2 agents commission. So that's why he was like, well, crap. So, and if he signed, I think there's another weird thing about it, but that's why he had to sign the short-term deal. So Twins were like, hey, we'll give you the AAV record. We're just going to pay you basically what Josh Allison was owed and get a better player. And we might luck into the playoffs now because our lineup's actually pretty good. So the Correa situation was pretty interesting. And that's why he couldn't go to the Orioles, just because he kind of made himself a pretty big mistake. But no, I mean, the Correa situation is very interesting. And I kind of want to talk about that one a little bit more, just because you never really hear about that. A guy changes agents and he's like, crap, I shouldn't have done that. Now I'm kind of screwed.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I just remembered seeing that he would have to pay 2 agents, so it makes sense why he signed the deal he did, and I don't have a problem with him signing that deal because he catches in on 1 year, and we're talking about guys like Trevor Story and other guys were like, oh man, if they're taking a short-term deal, Nats need to be on it or whatever, and obviously I wish they were, but for Correa going to the Twins made other moves that make sense to me, and you bring up the Orioles, and I get they have a deep farm system, but it's like, I don't know, signing one guy doesn't show me that you're trying. And that's where I'm like the bare minimum stuff comes in. Where just like, okay, you're literally clearly doing the bare minimum. And obviously the Orioles didn't sign anyone, and the Reds didn't really sign anyone. So it kind of goes to my point, but I don't know. This all just is me displacing my anger because the Nats didn't sign anyone except Nelson Cruz, and they got Nelson Cruz because they told him that they weren't done yet, and I guess that meant Sean Doolittle and Anibal Sanchez. So, Trey, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I think the Orioles could pursue Correa, obviously, if he ends up opting out after the first season with the Twins. But I actually love those his and Jorge Soler has 2 opt-outs in his 3-year deal, and I love those because they're prove-it deals with protection for the player. Like, if Correa doesn't have a great season, he doesn't have to opt out, and then he's going to make $35 million next year. But also, if the Twins get halfway through the season, realize they're kind of out, then they could trade him and say, this is because he's kind of on like a tentative 1-year deal technically at that point, because he would probably opt out if they weren't winning. But I'm a big fan of those. With the Rockies deal, it's not that I have a problem with, teams that aren't great signing big name players. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just the fact that they signed a third baseman after trading their third baseman and $50 million away 2 off seasons ago, or 1 off season ago. Whatever. All the years are blending together with this pandemic. But so yeah, I don't. It's kind of, it doesn't make sense.
No, that's basically what I'm trying to say. I'm probably not doing a great job at it. It's like if bad teams want to sign good players, that's what they should do, right? But it's the follow through. Like, all right, we signed a good player. You kind of need to do more. It's not like the NBA where signing one guy can really shift the needle. You really got to build a team. And with the Rockies, they're the laughing stock, or at least prior to Bryant. They were the laughing stock with some of the decisions they made, like trading Arenado and 50 million, but then not trading Story and what pitcher was it?
Marquez.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
he's
no,
still
not
there.
Marquez. It was not Freeland. Who the hell was it? Oh, John Gray.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was not trading Gray and Story at the deadline when you're like, and the reports came out they did try to re-sign Story, but I mean, but still trade him at the deadline, get something for him. But yeah, it's the follow through and the actions versus words and whatever of it all that just doesn't sit right with me. It's just annoying, but we weren't going to see it fixed all in one off season, even after the CBA got accepted. So it is what it is. I was going to say something about spring training, but I honestly don't care about spring training. I was like, do I even feel like talking about spring training? Spring training is
I'll talk about it. I listened to the whole game tonight.
I was gonna say it's cool because it's like, you know, the signal for the season coming up, but I don't put too much stock in it. But Trey, I'll give you the floor if you want to talk about spring training.
Yeah, I got a couple things. One, obviously we can't watch spring training, but we can listen to it. And so I listened to the broadcast this afternoon, and there's a couple guys, especially since the Nats didn't sign an infielder like Trevor Story or anything. And obviously with Keyboom getting hurt, which actually we should probably mention that as Carter Keyboom.
Yeah, worth mentioning.
Has an elbow problem.
Probably needs Tommy John, right?
Yeah, potentially needs it.
Make that up. Yeah,
potentially. So that sucks for him and for the Nats, but that leaves some infield positions open. Obviously, Luis Garcia comes to mind as a guy who's played before with the Nats, but I also like two other guys early on in spring, Lucius Fox and Jackson Clough. I've been high on Clough because he's really is an elite defender up the middle, and if he can just get on base enough, that's good enough for me to say, let's give this guy a shot. And Lucius Fox was, I believe the Nats got him in the Rule 5 draft last year before they canceled it, but he's a top 30 prospect
Orioles
in their system.
Released him.
Oh, is that how it worked?
Yeah.
They released him. Okay, never mind. Why did they? Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, it was because everyone's like, why did the Orioles release a prospect?
Yeah, he's 24 and he was pretty good at AAA last year. I mean, he got on base 35% of the time. Another guy who's moneyball, great infield defense and on base skills. He's also got speed. So those two guys are on my radar for this spring, especially if the Nats aren't going to make a trade for some infielder or something. You know, obviously they haven't done anything. So I'm looking at those two guys.
Yeah, and if we're mentioning Keyboom injury, we should probably mention the fallout from that. Your new Nationals starting third baseman is Michael Franco, and now
and that's why I'm looking for other guys to.
I was gonna say
take
now,
that spot.
now you know, if you weren't on board with signing someone previously, not that there's anyone left, you can kind of see why we wanted to sign someone like a Chris Bryant or make a move for Matt Chapman or Eugenio Suarez or something, just to not have to see Michael Franco in an opening day lineup. Like, holy crap, man.
It's going to hurt.
Alcides Escobar and Michael Franco are literally our left side of the infield on opening day.
The worst defense you could possibly have.
And like,
there's no value to Franco playing either. Like, it's not
like
he's going to do well enough.
Alcides Escobar playing either.
Well, I agree, but we kind of have
sorry,
to.
Allison, but like, I mean,
I'm with you, but they've basically already made that decision. So I'm kind of like,
right.
Yeah, Franco's he's not going to get any trade buzz because his best season is like 100 OPS plus as a hitter, and he's a terrible defender. There's literally no value to playing him at all.
Right. And I made that point today once I woke up and saw a Story signed. Davey has been coming out recently. I think earlier in the offseason, everyone, or the talk out of camp or you know, out of the Nats franchise, whatever organization, was that they were going to give Luis Garcia the opportunity to play shortstop. But now it seems like, oh, he's going to play second base until, you know, for the foreseeable future, basically, is what we're hearing. Because Davey made some comments the other day about he's going to stick at second base right now until he proves he can play there, because obviously shortstop is a very premium position. Not that second base isn't important, but shortstop is more premium in the grand scheme of things. So it's like, okay, if shortstop was open to begin with, why are we not in on a guy like Correa or Story? Like a Story, it seemed like he did want to go to a legitimate contender, and even the Twins have more upside than the Nats. But like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
What are we doing?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Like we don't have a prized shortstop prospect. Like Brady House is a shortstop, but he's going to be a third baseman when he gets here. And even still, he's not going to get here for like 4 more years. And who's the other shortstop that we have? Crap.
Well, Clough is one, but he's in.
No, it's not.
Probably not
Clough.
the one you're thinking about.
He's pretty highly ranked, and I'm not thinking Jordy Barley either. Crap, I can't remember. I think he was an international signing. But anyways, he's years away too. So it's like, if you wanted to do the Correa deal, break the AAV record, then dude, I don't know. It's just so frustrating.
Armando Cruz was the guy.
I think that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, he's number 5 right now for the Nats.
What's his? Do you see his projected MLB date or whatever?
2025.
Okay, yeah. So that goes to my point. 3 years away, at the most likely.
He's only 18.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there you go. I don't know. It's just frustrating because the Nats, like the other teams I was mentioning, they say one thing, they do another, or there's reports of one thing, they do another. It's like, okay,
the Nats are just saying a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, and Rizzo's kind of the king of that. Well, there's other people around sports that are much better at that, like Roger Goodell, king at saying nothing. It's like the king of public speaking. But anyways, Mike Rizzo kicks the tires on everyone, doesn't sign anyone. I mean, Nelson Cruz maybe, but he's gonna get traded in June. I'm gonna say in June that Nelson Cruz is gonna get traded. That's just bold take here.
I mean, if just there's no reason to keep him,
and then
because we're not going to be competitive.
And then he's going to be in the Nats Ring of Fame for 3 months of service. That's how. Yeah, that's how you make it as a national. But anyways, that's kind of a wrap on free agency. There's really not anyone left that I can think of. I was scrolling. I don't know how you say his first name, but the international free agent signing, Suzuki, he signed with the Cubs as well.
Yeah.
So like the Cubs and Nats were very, in very similar spots. Cubs won in 2016, Nats in 2019, but Cubs were still trying to compete through 2019. And then they both had a fire sale at the same time. Cubs add Marcus Stroman and Suzuki. They're in on Correa and a couple other guys. And they weren't going to fix it all in one offseason, but they're very clearly like, all right, let's speed this up. Nats don't add anyone. Okay, well, now they're behind the Cubs. In my mind, at least. Obviously, we have a 2022 season to play, but this team is not looking great at all. And Josiah, friend of the show, love that man. He kind of got rocked. So
yeah, that's whatever. It's spring training.
Yeah, it's spring training. They're trying out different pitches, and like, even if something's not working, they're going to keep trying it because it's spring training. These stats don't matter. Yeah, so I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but just for the people on Twitter, like, oh, just I got rocked. It's like, oh shit, it would have been nice if he had a great outing, so we can at least have that.
If spring training stats mattered, Victor Robles would be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, this is true.
I feel like every year definitely last year he hit like 350 in spring, was hitting bombs. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Well, think of Josh Bell's spring training. He was hot in spring training, got COVID, and then sucked for the first month and a half. It's like, oh man, one extreme to the other. So, all right, well, that's kind of a wrap on basically the off season, because now we're officially into spring training. We're wrapping up ranking season. We're gonna get into an NL East preview. We're gonna have a couple of interviews that episode, and then we'll do a Nats full-on preview episode before we get into our usual programming once the season starts, opening day and whatnot. But we have a packed episode. Like I said off the top, Outfielders today, top 15 in baseball. Similar lists, but there were some guys, even looking now at it, I'm like, man, if I can find a way to backdoor him into the top 15 somehow, I kind of want to. But regardless, Ryan and I put our list together, came up with a composite top 15. Trey has not seen the list once again, so he will live react and agree or disagree with his list and ranking, and we'll go from there. But without further ado, starting at number 15 for outfielders, we have one Nicholas Castellanos, new member of the Philadelphia Phillies, longtime wish list guy for me personally for the Nats. Not the best defender, but obviously you have the benefit of the universal DH. Yes, the benefit of the universal DH, so it would have been fine. Regardless, last year, 3.2 WAR, 309 batting average, 362 on base, 576 slugging, 4.939 OPS, 34 home runs, 100 RBIs on that. They weren't dreadful last year, the Reds team, but I'm sure. I don't know. The Reds are kind of like the Rockies. It's like they gave up so quickly, and now they're kind of just a laughing stock. I have a vendetta against the Reds. I think Monty's the only one that's really caught on to that, but caught on to that. But I'm not a big fan of the Reds. But Nicholas Castellanos, I am a big fan of. I had him 14. Ryan had him 14 as well. So on similar wavelengths there. With him, I just love the bat. I think some of his stats, and we mention it, from time to time when we bring him up, how much he loved playing in Detroit in that ballpark. So I think some of his stats were actually nerfed. And, once he got out of Detroit, you saw his stats really boom. After he was traded to Chicago in 2019, I mean, he had a hell of a half, 51 games, OPS over 1,000, 16 home runs in 51 games. Like that's pretty good. That's pretty good, on pace for like 48. So once he was in a much more hitter friendly park, his stats kind of boomed. And he's, like I said, never been the most elite defender, but is he the worst? Actually, he's one of the worst, but he's not terrible. I don't know who's going to DH in Philly. He is just as prime of a candidate as Kyle Schwarber probably, but that bat was worth the contract. 2020, throw it out. But his past 2 years, 863 OPS, part of that was in Detroit, but then the 939 last year. And I think that's probably where he would have been if he wasn't hitting in Detroit and Comerica for half his games. I like him a lot. Last year, All-Star, Silver Slugger, 12th in MVP voting. I think Nicholas Castellanos is a firm, deserving of a firm spot in the top 15, and he comes in at number 15 on our rankings. Ryan, what do you think of him?
Yeah, that boy can hit. He is second in amongst all outfielders in slugging last year. He was seventh amongst all outfielders with WRC plus at 140. His defense is absolute booty, but he can hit the ball really, really well. He did have some questions with his away splits, but going to the NL East, playing in Citizens Bank, he's going to like that very, very much. He's also going to be with a couple pretty more hitter-friendly ballparks with Nationals Park and Truist, so he should continue hitting the ball very, very well. He is going to be in left field just because he is a terrible defender, but Kyle Schwarber is even worse a defender somehow, so he will be in left field for the Phillies. That's going to be a really funny sight to see, but the man can hit, and every time he hits a home run, something terrible happens, and he's probably going to be hitting a lot of home runs this year, so the meme's going to stay alive.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I mean, obviously and there's a drive by Castellanos to make it a 4-0 ball game. Oh God. And someone, people are so quick on Twitter, but someone brought up the game that will be played this year by the Phillies on September 11th, and they just so happen to play the Nats. So
I was honestly hoping that we'd get through that without saying anything.
Oh yeah. So that, I mean, not that I'm rooting for anything, but that's
it's happening.
That might be painful to watch. Trey, did Castellanos crack your top 15?
Yeah, he was my number 15 choice. And ball go Burr with Nick Castellanos. He's there to hit. And honestly, playing left field probably gives him more value because you don't need to be as good of an outfielder in left field as you do in right field generally. So that's something. I mean, pretty much, yeah, he just hits well all the time. Like there's really nothing else you can say. He hits for power, he hits for contact. He's going to be hitting in Citizens Bank Park. Jeez, that Phillies team is going to score like 200 more runs than they did last year and win like 3 more games. So that's something interesting. But yeah, he's definitely a good addition to any lineup. So he's my number 15 choice.
This is a complete sidebar, but if you guys listen, terrible radio, by the way. If you guys have heard me fidgeting, I'm putting together a picture frame. I finally put it together I put it together upside down. So, I'm
Excellent work.
pretty happy about that. All right, moving on to number 14 in our rankings. And a good time to preface, there's several guys on our list and even in our honorable mentions where we're playing the what if game. It's like, if this guy stays healthy, man. And there will be times where we probably contradict ourselves because we're going to play what if more with some guys than others. Number 14 on our list is definitely one of those what if guys. So I will preface with that. Number 14 is Luis Robert. I had him 12th. Ryan had him unranked, which I think is fine because the sample size is not all that great. But if you do look at what was played, it's hard to not be excited about it. 68 games played, 13 home runs, 43 RBIs, 946 OPS. He had a 3.6 WAR in 68 games. So if you extrapolate that over a whole season, I mean, we're talking about a WAR over 7 in his age 23 season. And obviously, you can't do all these what ifs. You have to look at what actually happened. And the fact of the matter is he was hurt. He only played in 68 games. But if you do play the what if game, I mean, holy shit. Like, this guy might be really, really good. And it seems like a lot of of the younger guys are overshadowing him because they have had that full season so far. And obviously Tatis and Soto have the flair and the memes and stuff. But Luis Robert might be just as good. Like, he put together a hell of a season, while he was on the field last year. So I'm hoping he's healthy in 2022 and really puts it all together, because that White Sox team, we talked about it when they're first making those moves and those, free agent signings, trading for Lance Lynn, stuff like that. You're like, okay, this White Sox team might go burr. And then they hired Tony La Russa, and then, I think the hype kind of died. But Luis Robert is a guy where he does deserve some hype for sure. And he's only played 124 games in over 2 years so far, so it's not even a full season yet. But should he play a full season, we might see something truly special. Ryan, you did not have him ranked in your top 15. What are your thoughts on Luis Robert heading into 2022?
The man has fantastic potential. He has 5 tools, and when he's on the field, he showcases it. He just wasn't on the field enough for me to put him in the top 15. I couldn't justify it putting him over a lot of guys with him only playing 68 games. There are only 2 people on my list who I just ignored the injuries for very certain reasons when we get to them later. But he has unreal potential. 68 games, not enough for me to put him on top 15, and not enough for me to rank off of potential.
Yeah, again, that's fair. I think my eyes got a little bit bigger than my realistic stomach, I guess, with him. And when I was trying to decide who to leave off, I was like, I feel like his ceiling is probably a little bit higher than some of the other guys at this point. So I probably put him a little bit high, but I wanted him to be in that top 15 because he's definitely worth keeping an eye on and worth mentioning in this top 15. And dude gets on base. So Moneyball, 378 on base percentage last year. So if you want to Moneyball that, he is deserving of that. Trey, did Luis Robert crack your top 15?
Yes, he did. I had Luis Robert at 12.
I'm not surprised at all.
I love Luis Robert, and that's obviously valid to say he hasn't played enough games. I definitely can see that argument. I just, same thing with you. My eyes get big when I see this dude. He has got every tool in the book, anything you need. It's just need to get the sample size up. But I feel like if he plays a full season, I mean, I wouldn't say to expect a full season where his numbers were last year, but if he can get kind of like in between where he was in 20 and 21 with his batting numbers, I think that's probably more realistic. Right. And even then, if he's, a 120 OPS plus with elite defense and speed, that's probably in top 10 outfielders right now. So I'm projecting him more so than what he's done, but if he can stay healthy, he's going to be elite.
Yeah, for sure. And if you do average those numbers, and pretty similar sample size, obviously 2020 was the COVID year. He played in 56 games. 2021, due to injury, he was limited to 68 games. If you average those seasons, what it comes out to: 294, 345, 512 for an 857 OPS, a 132 OPS plus. Like, that's still very, very good. And he's only 24, entering his age 24 season. So there's plenty of room and time to grow. And I think he will firmly entrench himself into the top 15 next year. He's probably the guy that's going to rise if everything goes to plan and health is on his side. Moved on to number 13 on our list is probably one of the most tantalizing players, specifically bats in baseball, and that is Yordan Alvarez. Probably most likely DH bound, but he does dabble in some left field. We've talked about left field. You don't have to be the most elite defender, but man, ball go Burr. Ball definitely go Burr for Yordan Alvarez. Last year, 33 home runs, 104 RBIs. Obviously, the Astros are still very good. 277 average, 346 on base percentage, 531 slugging for 877 OPS. His numbers were actually a tick down. He's young, so he doesn't have a ton of games played, but in 2019, he was 313, 412, 655 for 1067 OPS. And I don't know, that was only 87 games, so I don't know that he would do that over a full season, but I only bring that up to show that his numbers were a tick down from his career average thus far. So he actually might get better. I forgot he won Rookie of the Year in 2019. That was just an absurd tear that he was on, and he had some absolute moonshots. I couldn't put him any higher, even though I definitely wanted to, just because I do think he's going to be more of a DH. I didn't even bother looking at his defensive stats because I knew the Astros tend to DH him more than anything, and they have some young outfield prospects. And someone like Michael Brantley, who's still very solid. So I didn't bother looking those up. But Yordan Alvarez is going to be just an absolute problem. And I don't know if he is going to try to work on that defense to, be a not 5-tool guy, but like a well-rounded ball player. But if he does end up just like maybe a JD Martinez or something, he's still going to have a spot in this top 15. He is an absolute problem. And like I said, ball go Burr. Ryan, you had him 12. I had him 13. What do you like about Yordan Alvarez?
Yeah, Alvarez is a top 10 hitter in the game, and you could probably argue that he's even higher than that. His bat is very, very good, and he's very, very special. Only reason why I have him 12th and not much higher is just because he kind of is fluctuating with the DH. And this season, he had some very, very incredible milestones. So, excuse me, in May, he played his 116th game. He had a 1.06 OPS through his first 116 games. That led all of baseball through that span. And then in July, he played his 160th game. He had 181 hits, 42 doubles, 44 home runs, and 138 RBIs. That's absolutely absurd. And then his rookie season, he had the 5th most total bases through 82 career games in MLB history. He is a very, very special hitter, and he's only going to get better. Like I said, at this point already in his career, you can argue that he's a top 10 hitter in the game. You can probably argue that he's higher, and that bat is only going to get better. He plays in a great ballpark in a great division for it, and the man can hit, and he's going to be a very special bat to watch throughout his career.
100%. 100% agree. The things he's doing at such a young age is, there's just like a boom of young talent right now. And it sounds stupid to say because there's always going to be young talent, but the Sotos, the Tatis, the Vladdies get all the attention, but there's still so many guys that are going to be absolute problems for a long time. And Alvarez is one of them. Trey, did he crack your top 15?
Alvarez, I actually did not rank because I categorized him as a DH.
That's fine.
So
because that's probably what he's going to be actually going forward.
If I did categorize him as an outfielder, he would obviously be on here because for all the reasons you guys said. I mean, he just consistently hits the ball as well as most players in the league can. I mean, he's like 24. Again, another super young guy. So yeah, he just had his first full season, and like his OPS was the lowest of his career, but it was only his first full season, so whatever. But he still slugged over 500, and he still gets on base, and he still hits the ball harder than most people do. So I definitely like Yordan Alvarez, but yeah, I had him more pegged as a DH. Same thing with Schwarber as well. I pegged him as the DH on that team, and Castellanos to play left. So that's why I left him off my list.
Schwarber wouldn't have been even close to my top 15 anyways. Most overrated player in the game.
I know. I saw your top 100 rankings. I know who got left off.
All right, moving on. Our list number 12 is, I don't want to call him a one-hit wonder because his one hit was last year and it very well could be repeated this year, but certainly if you look at his career thus far, it is the outlier. That is Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. Last year, he was phenomenal. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. 5.7 WAR, 30 home runs, 59 RBI, leadoff guy. So the RBI total is going to be a little bit down, and Orioles guy. So RBI total is going to be a little bit down. RBIs are a team stat. 291 average, 360 on base, 518 slugging for 878 OPS. So the thing to note with him, I will say I had him at 15. Ryan had him up at 10. So a little bit of a difference there. I just was hesitant to put him so high because, if you look from, I'll use 2020, even though we're kind of iffy on 2020 because 2019 stats were terrible, but 2020, his batting average is up 20 points. His on base is up 35 points. His slugging's up 111 points. Like, it just wasn't anywhere close, and there was no real progression throughout his career, 2018, 2019, 2020 being his career, that indicated that sort of breakout performance. But the one thing to note with him is he was a switch hitter prior to last year. And so then he just stuck with hitting lefty, and he had a phenomenal year. So I don't know if that's like a sign of things to come because he gave up switch hitting and he's just good enough to hit all pitchers left-handed, or, if it was that 1 year, just outlier for his career. But again, you can't take away what he did. He was phenomenal last year. The other funny note, he had a 5.7 WAR last year. He has a 5.4 WAR for his career. So that's just how much of a kind of outlier that 2021 season was, but it was very good. I think, he will be just fine. I just don't know, is he going to be 2021 fine, or is it going to drop down to tick, because his 2021 season is kind of a high bar to repeat. But 159 games, me, I love durability, center fielder, primary very important position, all-star, silver slugger, 9th in MVP voting. Cedric Mullins, I can see why Orioles fans and just baseball fans in general might be excited about him. And he's going to be a guy I have my eye on for sure, because I thought it was so interesting to see, he used to be a switch hitter, now he's not. And he did really, really well. So maybe there is reason to believe he can sustain this going forward. Ryan, you had him up at 10. What do you love about Cedric Mullins so much?
Yeah, Mullins is very, very good. It was his coming out party this season, the first full season of his career. He's been battling a lot of health and injury issues through his career. He also announced that he has Crohn's disease. Crohn's is absolutely miserable. It is not a fun thing to have. And he was an all-star and probably would have been a lot higher in MVP votes if the Orioles weren't as bad as they were. He was 9th in on base amongst all outfielders, 10th in slugging amongst all outfielders as well. So he can hit. He hits for contact, hits for power as well. He is good. And he also plays a great defense in center field as well. He's really developed into a round player. You count that in the fact that, like I said, he's doing it with Crohn's. That's rather impressive. All of his advanced metrics say that this is kind of who he is. So he should continue doing this on. Eventually, the Orioles will get more protection for him in the lineup. Adley Rutschman's going to be coming up this year, which is going to be pretty nice for him. And he's going to be a fantastic story to keep watching, and honestly an inspiration for a lot of people as he continues to play this well.
Yeah, for sure. He was, I believe, 10th in outs above average, and then he was up there in defensive run save, whatever metrics you want to look at for defense. He was up there, so he does play good defense as well. And like Ryan said, factor in the fact that he's doing this with Crohn's disease. I mean, dude's just a flat out baller. Trey, where did Cedric Mullins come in at your top 15?
I had him at 14, and I'm kind of looking at these stats, and I think I might have messed up. I think I should have ranked him higher, but either way, he had a 30-30 season as a center fielder, and if that's what he is, if that's what he is every year,
first in Orioles history.
Yeah, if he's gonna do that every season, he's going straight up my list. It's just that he only played one full year. And like you said, Nick, this was a huge outlier because obviously I'm looking at his numbers previous seasons, way less sample size, but he was not hitting great for this kind of power. He was not hitting. He was not taking as many walks. He improved his on base as well from 2020. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Mullins, and if he's going to be a 30-30 guy in center field, then he's going to go up.
Yeah. For sure. 7 home runs in like 115 games prior to 2021, but then 30 and 159 last year. So it's like, where's that power truly going to fall? Is he going to be a perennial 30-30 guy, or is it going to be a little tick lower? If it is a tick lower, he'll still be fine. But if it is going to be a perennial 30-30 power guy or type guy, yeah, he's going to shoot up this list. So more sample size will help Cedric Mullins, but he does come in at number 12, as is in our top 15. Moving on to number 11, we have George Springer. Talked about the what if game. George Springer, was injured to start last year, came on and did very, very well. He played in I'm looking at the wrong year, 78 games last year, 2.4 WAR, 50 RBIs, 22 home runs, 907 OPS, 352 on base for our Moneyball guys. I put George Springer at 9. Ryan actually did not have him ranked. So I'm curious to hear why. And obviously, when we're doing top 15 and kind of combining 3 positions into one, you are going to have some notable guys left off. But George Springer, I bought into the sample size, and he probably didn't get as much credit as he deserved with those Astros teams. And, people are going to say, well, they were cheating, and that's fair. We talked about it with Altuve and Bregman and Correa, and the years that you can clearly see if you look at Baseball Reference or anything, clearly see that they were cheating. But with Springer, his numbers have been fairly consistent. His OPS was up a little bit last year, but he only played in 78 games, so that might have dropped a little bit had he played a full season. But if you go back to his 2019 season, that's definitely the best of his career. 39 home runs, 96 RBIs, trying to find something, 974 on base percentage. And that's probably going to be his best year of his career. I mean, probably, maybe not, because that was his age 29, and now he's heading into his age 32 season. I know. So, like, trying to look up stats as I'm talking, and it's just not working well. So I'm just going to talk.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, I know. George Springer, I am kind of playing up the what if, as I mentioned before, but also just kind of that impact guy. He's a leadoff guy. It just feels like George Springer brings that kind of energy to a team that you can't really quantify. It sounds so stupid when we're talking about all these advanced metrics and stuff, but George Springer feels like just a ball player that you add to a team, and it just makes a difference all throughout. Kind of like a Tom Wilson in hockey, maybe not the best comparison, but just a guy you can add to a lineup, and it just makes a difference. Even though he's not batting behind someone, he's actually leading off, kind of setting the table. But he also has significant power as well, so he can start off a game 1-0, similar to what we saw with the Nats and Kyle Schwarber. Not your prototypical leadoff guy, but if he can start off a game 1-0, then hell, that's that's just fine. Cause like he's not stealing a ton of bases. The most he's ever had in his career is 16. That came back in 2015. He hasn't had more than 9 any year since then. So it's like, I don't know who he is, like, what I am losing my mind here as I'm trying to like look up stats. Anyways, I like George Springer a lot. I think he's going to fit in very well with that Blue Jays team and what they're doing up there. And I'm just very excited. I couldn't put him any low. Well, I couldn't put him out of the top 15, certainly, because I look at the sample size and I'm like, oh, this guy has been doing it consistently for quite some time. His like real first injury plagued year was last year, and it was at the start of the year. And then once he came back, he was solid throughout. So I'm not putting too much stock in an injury. I'm hoping it doesn't come to bite him now. He's getting a little bit older. But Ryan, where do you have George Springer in the grand scheme of things?
Didn't rank him just because, like I said, there's only 2 players that I excused injuries for. George Springer is not one of them. Only played 78 games last year. That's not enough for me to put him on my top 15 and to consider him over other players. George Springer is a very good player, though. He's going to put up 4 WAR just about in every single season. In 8 years, he's a 30 WAR. He put up 2.4 this year, playing just half the season. He's a very good player. He is easily a top 15 outfielder when he's healthy, when he's playing. I do think he is one of the better players that the Astros have let go. That includes Correa and including Altuve in that as well, even though Altuve is there. But those 3 are forever going to be intertwined with each other. Oh, and Bregman. Those 4 are going to be intertwined forever as long as they're playing. But like I said, all the talent aside, did not play enough games for me to rank him.
You are consistent. We have seen that throughout the ranking. So if that's the reason why he didn't crack your top 15, I can live with that, because I'm hoping, based on his previous history, that he will play, more than 78 games, like a good bit more than 78 games this upcoming year for that very exciting Blue Jays team.
Like you said, I'm consistent, baby. And I didn't mention the Florida thing because he was hurt when they're playing in Florida.
Oh, but you have to mention it.
Have to mention it. But yeah, he didn't make the cut for my 2 injury guys that I gave some slack to.
That is fair. Recently adopted the Blue Jays as my AL team. I just wanted to throw that out there. Trey, did George Springer crack your top 15?
Yeah, he was number 10 on my list, and it's definitely valid concern for a center fielder going into his age 32 season with some injuries the previous year. He just, the consistency for me was why I definitely had to keep him ranked this high, even with the injury last year, just because his lowest OPS plus by season was in 2018 at 114. He averages a 132 OPS plus for his career as a center fielder. And, that's hitting that well as center fielder that consistently is going to get you some points with me. So just hoping that he can stay healthy this year and play a full season, because that Blue Jays squad is going to be disgusting if they can stay healthy.
God, I pray that Blue Jays team is going to be so fun to watch. All right, moving on to number 10. So yeah, it is top. I was going to say top 10. Wasn't sure if it's top 10. It is top 10. Number 10 for us is Starling Marte, new member of the Mets, right? I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's played in like a bunch of different teams recently, like Arizona, Miami, Oakland. I think he almost signed back in Miami and then ended up with the Mets. He's also played, and maybe it's just because he has played on so many different teams, so there's multiple rows for different seasons based on what team he's played, but he's been in the league longer than I thought he was, but he is still he's entering his age 33 season. But it's still very, very good and still deserving of a contract. Signed a 4-year, $78 million deal with the Mets. Granted, maybe a little overpay on behalf of Steve Cohen, but hard to argue against the numbers last year. 4.7 WAR, 310 batting average, 841 OPS, 383 on base. So dude does get on base. Starling Marte, probably the most difficult player for me to rank personally. I knew he was going to be top 15 for me. I just didn't know how high or how low, and nothing really felt appropriate. Like if I had him, like 7th or 8th, I was like, oh, that's too high. If I had him 13th or 14th, I was like, oh, that's too low. So I put him at 10th. That's where I had him. Ryan had him at 9th, so I felt pretty good about that I wasn't just going crazy. Starling Marte is a very, very solid outfielder, like very rounded, well-rounded, and can kind of just do it all. Hits for some power, not a ton, but hits for some, can steal a base here and there, although he hasn't done that as much lately. And then, just kind of hits, for hits to contact, gets on base, and hits for a respectable OPS as well. Ryan, you had him at 9. What do you like about Starling Marte?
Yeah, Marte is one of the more underrated outfielders in the game. He is a perennial 4-WAR player. He's very solid. He's going to put up 4-WAR every single year. Last year, he was closer to 5. We kind of are really seeing his offense develop more consistently, which I really like every single year, and he should continue that in New York. He was 3rd amongst all outfielders in batting average and 2nd in all outfielders in on base percentage. He also stole 47 bases last year. Big fan of that. And he was the first player in MLB history to be top 10 in stolen bases in both the AL and the NL in the same season. He has consistently used his speed, which is always a threat as well. Doesn't really need the power. If he can continue getting on at a 380 clip, he's going to be very effective. His speed makes him also very dangerous. His effectiveness at stealing bases makes him that as well. He's also a solid defender. Doesn't get really talked about a lot just because the teams he played for spent, the first 8 years of his career or so in Pittsburgh. And then, let's see, then he went Arizona, Miami, Oakland, now the Mets. That's like 5 teams in just 2 seasons. Not so now more people are talking about him just because he's getting more exposure, but he's finally in a big market. He's going to get the attention he deserves this year. And I think he's going to continue to shine.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I'm an idiot. I was looking at, so I mentioned how on Baseball Reference, his 21 totals are split up between Miami and Oakland. I was looking at just Oakland, and he stole 25 bases just in Oakland, and that's what I was looking at. But 47 bases stolen, very, very good. Kind of a lost art for sure. And Starling Marte still does it, at a premier level. Trey, where did Marte wind up for you?
I had Starling Marte at number 8. He's got pretty much every tool, and he's still using his speed even into his 30s, and that's something that's interesting to me because you don't really see dudes
usually declines.
Usually, take a little easier, but 47 steals at age 32 is pretty impressive, especially nowadays where nobody steals ever. So I think that factor really made me want to rank him a little bit higher because I don't know if this should correlate, but in my brain, its correlation is fast means that he's not going to be declining in age. I don't know why that's how it works in my brain, but that's how it works. So that's why I put him a little bit higher. But he's definitely, like Ryan was saying, he's developed his hitting to be more consistent, and that's important because he was a little bit inconsistent in Pittsburgh earlier in his career, although I'm a little confused looking at the numbers, how he bounced around so many teams the last couple of years because he was good. Like, I feel like he should have gotten a deal maybe a little bit earlier.
Well, it's like what Ryan said, the teams just sucked, so he was always trade bait.
Yeah, I feel like some team would sweep in when he's a free agent and give him a decent contract. But so he was in my number 8 choice.
Yeah, apparently he wanted to stay in Miami and wanted to work out a contract extension, and then they traded him. So, there's that. He also is the but the culprit, the reason for one of the more disturbing Instagram videos. If anyone remembers his 4th of July video. No,
I don't.
He tied up a live mouse to a rocket and shot the mouse.
What the fuck? How did I never know about that?
It was
that's been a meme like ever since. I'm very surprised you didn't know about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was very, very weird.
My God.
And unsettling. Like,
that's nuts.
It's a mouse. I don't know. It was just very, very
I can't believe I've never seen that or heard of it.
Yeah. So all right, Starling Marte at number 10 on our list. Moving on to number 9, a guy that initially I didn't think I was going to have this high, but you look at his 2021 season and it's hard not to have him this high. That is Kyle Tucker. I had him at 8. Ryan had him at 11. Comes in at number 9 on our rankings. Looking at last year, 5.7 WAR, 30 home runs, 92 RBIs, 359 on base, 917 OPS. I mean, just very, very solid. I think back to like the 2019 run. Obviously, Nats played the Astros in the World Series. That was his age 22 season. But I remember seeing him like, oh, this is the guy the Astros are really hyping up and like to be their next homegrown superstar. And again, he was only 22 at the time, so it's kind of like dumb for me to just judge him solely on that postseason run. But then you see what he did in 2021, you're like, oh shit, the Astros are right. Once again, like whatever they're doing, it's working, whether they are still cheating or not, but it's working. Kyle Tucker is very, very good. You can't really argue against anything he's doing. He's doing everything pretty well. And he's going to be 25 next year. Like who knows where the ceiling truly is for this guy. He might just be an absolute dude. And again, you can't really argue against anything he's doing. It just seems like he's another very well-rounded ball player. Added in 14 steals last year, so it's like he can kind of do everything. And he might be a problem. He might be the reason why they opted to let Springer go. Granted, Springer probably left because he wanted to get out of Houston, but it's a little bit easier to swallow losing a guy like Springer when you have a guy like Kyle Tucker waiting in the wings. Ryan, what do you like about Kyle Tucker?
Yeah, Kyle Tucker probably should have been ranked higher, but
yeah,
I already finished my top 10 when I remembered him, and I didn't feel like redoing it. But Kyle Tucker is the reason why the Astros were so comfortable letting George Springer go. He is the real deal. He is a absolute string bean. My man's is 6'4", not even 200 pounds. He's probably not even 200 pounds soaking wet. And he was 4th amongst all outfielders in slugging with 557. He can hit. He is good. He had a 6 WAR last year. That was his first full season. Played 58 games in 2020, but that is a good 2 months. So this was his first full season and really his year to show everyone why he was hyped up as he was, why the Astros were so comfortable letting Springer go because of him. And he can plug the gaps. He had 37 doubles this last season. And then in 2020, he had 12 and 58. He also led the league in triples in 2020. Like I said, 6 triples in 2 months. That's pretty good. So he can plug the gaps very, very well. And he also doesn't strike out a lot. He only struck out 90 times in 140 games last year, in the time when strikeouts are happening more than hits. That's very, very impressive. He is very disciplined at the plate. He makes a lot of contact, and he is very good.
That is for sure. I'm glad you mentioned the plug the gaps thing, because he had a slight uptick last year in home runs. Obviously, it was his first full year, but he still can plug the gaps at a high rate. Trey, where did Kyle Tucker end up for you?
On my list, Kyle Tucker was number 7. And I am a huge believer in this guy. I think he could be an MVP candidate as early as this season, but I didn't want to go that crazy. So put him at 7. But his ability to hit for contact, and like Ryan said, he doesn't strike out and still hit for the power that he hits for, is the most impressive part to me, because he takes pitchers' pitches and does damage to them. And you're not really supposed to do that at especially, slugging almost 560 with only 90 strikeouts is absolutely stupid. So, and he's like 25, so he's going to be awesome. Obviously this is a loaded list because I was just looking at who's in front of him, and this is about as high as I could put him. But I'm a huge fan of Kyle Tucker. He's just really fun to watch as well, just because, like I said, he's always looking to put the bat on the ball, and everybody knows balls put in play are fun. So entertainment and skill, perfect combo for me. So number 7.
Yep. And who knows where he winds up next year, but he is going to be a guy you have to watch, because he's just going to, force you to. Basically, the dude does it all. Coming in at number 8 on rankings is a guy I probably am a little bit hypocritical with, especially when you compare him to where I had Cedric Mullins. That is Tyler O'Neill for the St. Louis Cardinals. 2021 was his coming out party. But if you go back, we'll throw out 2020. If you go back to 2019, there wasn't a ton of indication that this 2021 season was on the horizon. His batting average was up 26 points, his on-base percentage up 41 points, his slugging up 140 points. So it's like there wasn't a ton of reason. He only played 60 games, and I'm not going to pretend to know every single thing going on with the Cardinals. So there might have been injury or some other reason that those numbers were so low. But in 2018, 2019, 2020, again, there was no real indication that a season like 2021, Tyler O'Neill was on the horizon. That being said, his 2021 season was pretty freaking great. 6.3 WAR, 286 batting average, 352 on base, 560 slugging for a 912 OPS, 34 home runs, 80 RBIs, and he's pretty solid defensively. I believe he plays left field, so it's like, the competition for left field's not all that great if you're talking defense, but he plays a pretty solid defense as well. Gold Glove last year in 2020 and this year in 2021, as much stock as you want to put into a Gold Glove, but he was up there in outs above average and defensive runs saved as well. So he might be a guy that just is so well-rounded that he's going to be perennial top 15, perhaps top 10. Well, he's top 10 this year. Outfielder going forward. Like, he's just a dude. I don't know where he's going to end up settling in terms of his offensive stats, but because that defense is there too, he's just going to be an absolute guy going forward. Ryan, you had him at 7. I had him at 11. What do you like about Tyler O'Neill so much that you're putting him over a couple other recognizable names?
Tyler O'Neill is good. He is someone who kind of needs to get more respect, and 2021 was his first full season. His career early on was riddled with injuries, and the Cardinals kind of thought he was just going to be a lost cause. 2018, he missed most of the season with a hamstring injury. 2019, he battled a wrist injury, a groin injury, a finger injury. So there's kind of a lot going on with him in his first 2 seasons. He kind of got a little back issue happening in 2020, but he played through that as well. The team was rightly worried about him. It's kind of like a Fernando Tatis situation. Is he injury prone, or is he playing too hard, or is he kind of dumb? It might be one of those things there, but for this season, he put everything together and he was healthy, playing 138 games, and his numbers did not disappoint. 912 OPS, man, is just legit. He also had over a 6 WAR. That's well deserving of an all-star. When you're considering WAR, if you get 6 and up, all-star, 7 up, you're in the MVP conversation. He was 3rd amongst all outfielders in slugging. He also had a 352 OPS, which is good for top 10 as well. Nick, you mentioned his defense. He is 8th amongst all outfielders with 11 defensive run saves. Jackie Bradley Jr. only had 1 more defensive run saved, and he's kind of seen as one like the best all-around defensive outfielders, even though he can't hit for crap. But he was finally healthy, and he had a good season. His biggest question mark going forward is he going to be able to hold off those injuries? Hamstring injuries absolutely suck. Back injuries are very, very concerning. If he can hold off the back injury, he'll keep doing this, and he'll consistently be in the top 10, and someone that is going to get more and more attention. Goldschmidt's there. Goldschmidt loves hitting around him because he's great protection for both of them. And Arenado, that lineup works, and he is definitely thriving and helping them thrive as well.
Definitely. Trey, where did Tyler end up in your top 15?
Tyler ended up in my number 9 spot.
We're on fire right now.
Yeah, we're doing real good. Number 9. So pretty much all of the reasons you guys described. He's got most of the tools. He put them all together. All the advanced metrics on his hitting suggest that this is going to be him going forward. He's over 98th percentile on average exit velo, hard hit percentage, xWOBA, xSlug, all that. So that's good for his batting. And it's an interesting dynamic in St. Louis. I obviously know why he's not playing center field there, because Harrison Bader is very, very good. But I'm curious if he's just more comfortable in left, or if he maybe doesn't have skills in center field and right field. Because I know Dylan Carlson played right field for them the majority of the time, I believe, and he was not very good on defense. So I don't, at least from what I'm thinking off the top of my head. So I'm curious as to why he chooses to play left, but he's very, very good at it. Yeah, 2-time Gold Glove, and those Gold Gloves are warranted because he is that good. But yeah, he's another young guy. It's going to be a beast, man. This is full of young talent in this in the outfield right now. So gotta love it.
Also,
sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
One little tip about him. Since 2020, he has a 6.6 WAR per 650 plate appearances. People don't like doing WAR per plate appearances, but it's interesting. That 6.6 WAR is higher than Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Freddie Freeman, and Aaron Judge. When he's healthy, the man's legit.
He's also shredded. So
yeah.
We almost forgot to mention that.
I mean,
you can't not notice it. He's huge.
What the hell's wrong with us? But with Dylan Carlson, I know that's a guy they value highly. I'm not going to compare him to like a Victor Robles, but it's a guy that the Cardinals organization does really value. So maybe he's still young. He's like, I believe he's entering his age 24 season. So maybe they just think he'll grow into right field, but it is curious to see them opt to put their better defender in left field when right field's typically the spot you want to do that. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they do end up making that switch down the road. All right, moving on to our top 7 in our rankings. Top half of this top 15 outfielders is the guy I am a big fan of, and he's one of our, again, short preface here. We have a top 100 players coming out in a couple weeks. One of our Half Street High Heat team members left this guy off his list, and I messaged him. I was like, is that on purpose or did you just accidentally do it? He's like, oh, it was an accident. So it's a guy I love a lot and am excited to see him get out of Pittsburgh finally, whenever that day may come. That is Bryan Reynolds. I had him 7. Ryan had him 6. Last year, 6.0 WAR. I'm just going to jump straight to on base percentage because he had a 390 on base percentage last year. So that's pretty damn good. 912 OPS, 24 home runs, 90 RBIs. Just very, very solid. I mean, he played in 159 games last year, but 55 of the 60 in 2020, 134 of obviously 162 in 2019. So we've gotten a pretty good read on him thus far. His 2020 numbers were down, but you can just kind of chalk that up to COVID and just the weird spring training that 2020 was. But his numbers have been very, very good ever since he hit the scene in Pittsburgh. If you're looking at his career splits, 128 OPS plus, 858 OPS, 490 slugging, 368 on base percentage. The dude is just very, very good. All-star last year, 11th in MVP voting. I believe he was an all-star starter, if I'm not mistaken. I think the fact of the matter for him is he just needs to get out of Pittsburgh. I mentioned off the top, the teams that are just actively not trying. The Pirates are one of them. You could say they're just waiting for their young guys to hit the scene, but the fact that they don't spend money at all, if ever, kind of tells me all I need to know about that organization. And Bryan Reynolds, I'm hoping he just gets out of there and can really take off. But for right now, he is very, very good. We mentioned, 6 WAR potential. He hit that or the 6 WAR, mark for players. And Bryan Reynolds hit that. He's very, very good. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for him because he's only entering his age 27 season. So he's very much in his prime and could get even better from his already superb 2021 season. Ryan, you had him higher than I did. You had him at 6. I had him at 7. What do you think about Bryan Reynolds going forward?
Yeah, counterpoint to you. I hope he stays in Pittsburgh. The Pirates have something very, very special brewing, and I want to see him hitting with O'Neal Cruz, who's going to be the next Barry Bonds for the future. I want to see those two and Ke'Bryan Hayes in a lineup together for a very long time. So I hope he stays because they actually kind of have something special brewing. But Bryan Reynolds is very good. I've always been a nice fan of him. He came on the scene pretty hard in his rookie season, 4 WAR in his rookie year, which is absolutely fantastic, especially as a rookie. He had 880 OPS, 500 slugging. Numbers dropped in 2020. It's 2 months. I do not care about that. He led the league in triples this year with 24 home runs, 90 RBIs on a not that good team. That's a team stat that's very good. And he also had 35 doubles. The man is just a good, pure hitter. He's average at defense. He's pretty great. 912 OPS. I love that. 390 on base. I like my on base percentage. He's just a good, well-rounded player. And I'm very excited to continue watching him play and continue seeing these elite prospects come up and help give him lineup protection, because it's going to be pretty fun and he should only get better.
Yeah, that's fair. I have a problem when teams don't spend money, and I don't think the Pirates deserve him. I'll leave it at that. Trey, where did Brian Reynolds end up for you?
All right, so I had Reynolds at 13.
All right,
and
all right. Moving on to
listen. Hey, I want to give a disclaimer that it's not that big of a gap, really. Like, I based this on how I ranked my top 100, and like all these guys were all ranked like in the top, 35 players almost. So, yeah, but I had him a little bit lower because I had some guys, or at least one guy that you guys haven't mentioned yet that I am more high on. But yeah, he's a really, really great talent. The bat for a center fielder, I mean, doesn't get much better. He has most of the tools. I wouldn't give him speed. He doesn't have that many stolen base attempts. Not that steals are that big of a deal anymore, but I do like that aspect of, the 5 tool center fielder types. But yeah, no, this is who he is. The 2020 season doesn't count. He's played 2 full seasons, and his lowest OPS was 880 as a rookie. So he's got the bat. The glove is good enough, and I really like Reynolds, and I don't know. I probably underrated him, but whatever. It's too late.
You definitely did, but that's all right. At least you're admitting it. And if you had him top 35 or whatever on your top 100, then
I can't remember, but all these guys were close to each other.
Yeah. So if you had him that high in the grand scheme of things, then, you kind of redeem yourself a little bit there. All right, moving on to number 6 in our rankings is one of my favorite players in baseball, always has been, just a great personality. That is one Marcus Lynn Betts, otherwise known as Mookie Betts. Phenomenal bowler as well. Like, he could be a multi-sport athlete. I don't know if there's a professional bowling league, but he could be the next who do you think you are, I am type guy. That is Mookie Betts. Last year, a little bit of a down year for him. I will say that he wasn't the former MVP self, but he's just an exceptional defender. And, you saw him fill in from time to time at second base with, I believe he did that for Boston. I don't know if he ever did that for the Dodgers without as many, Swiss Army knives that they have. Last year, 4.2 WAR, 23 home runs, 58 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, 854 OPS, kind of just does it all. Again, very great defender. He won a Gold Glove in 5 straight years, I believe. And then obviously the MVP back in 2018, MVP 2 back in 2016, both with Boston, and then MVP 2 last year. I forgot about last year with the COVID year, but MVP 2 Gold Glove. With Mookie Betts, like, he hasn't ever like wowed you with the stat sheet. I think the biggest argument is 2016 with 31 home runs and 113 RBIs, but that's 6 years ago at this point. But he's always just been very, very solid. And again, I love him. So I had him number 5. Ryan had him down at number 8. Some guys like Brian Reynolds, Tyler O'Neill passed him for Ryan. But I just think, we talk about sample size and consistency and, just how long they've been doing it. And he does get an MVP boost for me. We mentioned that in a couple of our rankings. Like, Mookie Betts is always just going to be a guy, and he might get overshadowed a little bit just because of how good that Dodgers lineup is. You have Freddie Freeman there, Trey Turner, and all the guys that already had Cody Bellinger, former MVP as well, although that's a completely different conversation with Cody Bellinger. But Mookie Betts is a cornerstone on any single team, and I don't think that should be forgotten. Even though he did have a down year last year, I expect those numbers to go back up towards his career average, because if you compare 2021 to his career average, it was down 30 points in batting average, down, a few points on base percentage. That's kind of remained the same, down 30 points in slugging, down 40 points in OPS. So I think his numbers will kind of bounce back up, and, down 7 home runs for his, 162 game average as well. So I think his numbers will bounce back up, especially like I just mentioned, that Dodgers lineup. he's going to have protection every which way, and they're going to have to pitch to someone. And I feel like they're probably going to pitch to Mookie Betts as opposed to like Freddie Freeman or any of those other guys. I'm excited to see how the Dodgers actually structure their lineup, because I think Mookie Betts has just as much argument to, bat fourth as he does to like lead off. He can kind of really fit anywhere in a lineup, and love that man. Love Mookie Betts. Ryan, you had him down a little bit. Not that, you can't argue for Tyler O'Neill or Brian Reynolds or any of these other guys being ahead of him or being that high. But why are you a little bit down on Mookie Betts?
Yeah, Mookie Betts is coming off the worst season of his career. He only played 122 games last year. He battled a hip injury that kind of nagged, and his numbers suffered. I'm using suffered a little light there.
Right.
Only an 854 OPS. That's absolutely atrocious for him. When Mookie is healthy, he's the second best player in baseball. He plays an elite defense. He has an elite arm. He's pretty good speed, and he's a fantastic hitter as well. But coming off the worst season of his career, I do bump him down a little bit. He is one of 2 active players who have ever posted a WAR above 10 in a season. Like, his WAR was higher than, he had a 10.7 WAR, and that's higher than Mike Trout's ever had in a season. He is a very, very special player. He's a fantastic player. The injury with the hip is concerning. If he's healthy this year and if he bounces back, he will arguably be back up ranking in the top 3 of this list. But coming off the injury in the worst season of his career, I had to bump him down to 8, which was a little stinky to do just because how special he is. But
yeah, I think that's fair. And I'm hoping he can just like prove, because that argument, I think it was probably 2017, 2018, probably 2018 when he won the MVP. That was really the time where people were like, oh, he might be better than Mike Trout. Like, that was really when the argument was the loudest. And since then it has cooled off. But prior to 2021, that is, like, he hasn't really cooled off. He didn't hit those 2018 highs, but he was still very, very good. And 16 home runs in 55 games in 2020, like, that's not exactly easy to do. And that would have been over 162 had he kept it up. That easily would have been his career high. Trey, where did Mookie Betts wind up for you?
I had Mookie Betts at number 6 on my list, and it's just the fact, again, he's just been a consistently good hitter and a great fielder for his entire career. And I'm not willing to part with my love for Mookie Betts based on one down season. Now, yes, a hip injury, that's definitely concerning, because those tend to linger. And so we got to definitely keep our eye on that. So if he can come back fully healthy, though, I would more expect that he will get his OPS back over 900 and, still be playing elite defense. So he's still one of the best, although the top 5 on this list is there's no way anyone else is breaking into it. So this is Mookie's basically the best player on my list before the best players on my list, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But if he's healthy, he's in that group, though. That's the difference. So we have to just see how he comes back this season. But I definitely think he's of that level when he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ryan. If he's healthy, he is top 3 for me. But I also agree with you in that the top 5 is pretty ironclad. So it's like, it's kind of rock and hard place to where you need to rank Mookie Betts. But he's top 5 for me. I bumped the number 5 on our list, who I'll talk about in a second. I bumped down to number 6 to make room for Mookie Betts. But on my first run, I had him number 3. I was like, oh, Mookie Betts is top 3 for me. And then I like really dove into numbers. I was like, I'm going to drop him down to number 5. But if he's healthy, he is top 3 for me. He is very, very good. And it's hard to, do everything that, playing baseball entails at such a high level for as long as he's been doing, and he has been doing it. I don't know a ton about the award, but he won the Wilson overall defensive player of the year award as well. So I would imagine, that's not easy to do, and Mookie Betts did it. So he is just truly a well-rounded baseball player, coming in at number 6 in our rankings. But moving on to our top 5, the guy, you play the what if game with him as well, because pretty much ever since his rookie year, we haven't seen it all come together in terms of health. Last year was better for sure. You played in 148 games last year. But that is obviously Aaron Judge. When he's healthy, when he puts it all together, Like there might not be anyone more exciting to watch in baseball. But if you go back to that special rookie campaign, I mean, 52 home runs. I mean, he almost won MVP and Rookie of the Year, and only a few have ever done that. And that was obviously the Jose Altuve cheating thing and all that stuff. We can talk about that forever. But Aaron Judge has always been one of the most tantalizing players in baseball. Just the sheer power. Obviously, everyone remembers the home run derby he was in as well. Like he just has it. Like it's hard to get players to have that it factor. You can't like make someone have it. They either have it or they don't. Aaron Judge has it. It's just a matter of, because he's 7'12", he's going to get injured a lot, and he's 6'7", but he's going to get injured a lot because it just,
you're right, the first time.
The kind of abusive nature he plays. He's just banging around all the time. So you're hoping he can stay healthy, but so far he hasn't been able to. He's always been battling like nagging injuries if he hasn't been battling that one big injury as a whole. But there's not much you can say in argument against him, when he is healthy. Health is really the only thing, because people will automatically go to, oh, he's not a good defender. Well, actually, he kind of is. Like, he actually is a really solid defender. So it's like he doesn't really have a hole in his game. And even if he did, the offense more than makes up for it. The only hole in his game is the health. But if he's going to play in 148 games every season going forward, that's still fine. Like, that's still perfectly fine. You go to his 2021 stats, like I mentioned, 148 games played, 6.0 WAR, 287, 373, 544 for a 916 OPS, 39 home runs, 98 RBIs. Not vaccinated though. That was the big news coming out of Yankees camp. We'll see when we get there. I just thought that was a pretty funny response. Ryan, you had him at number 5. I had him at number 6. What's going on with Aaron Judge?
Yeah, Aaron Judge is a victim of the New York media and unreal expectations. When Aaron Judge is healthy, he is an undoubted top 8 player in baseball. He is very good. He is 6'7". Tall players do not fare very well in baseball. That's kind of just the nature of it. Guys who are tall are going to get hurt, but he has a career 940 OPS. Yes, him having a 1.05 OPS is bringing that up a little bit, but following his rookie year, he's had a 919, 921, 891, 916 OPS. 2020 was his worst season, only played 28 games, 890 OPS. Health is his issue, but when he's healthy, he's absurd. This year, he was healthy. He finished 4th in the MVP race, 39 home runs, 98 RBIs, a 916 OPS, a 544 slugging, and he also gets on at a pretty great clip as well. He's a career 386 on base percentage. He's good. Like, Aaron Judge is a victim of the New York media being absolutely ridiculous as they are. That's just the nature of the city. It's cutthroat, whatever. I get it. It's funny, but Aaron Judge needs respect. Injuries are his thing, but if he stays healthy again this year, he will finally get the respect he deserves, because like I said, when he's healthy, he is a top 8 player in baseball. Like, I think it was 2018. He had a 6 WAR in 100 games. 6 WAR in 100 games is absolutely ridiculous. Like, that's very hard to do. And you do that by being a good hitter and a good defender. But New York media is going to New York media.
That is for damn sure. Trey, I assume Aaron Judge was top 5 for you.
He was. I had him at number 4. And I do want to talk about his defense. Everybody knows about the bat. Okay. That's no secret, but the defense is extremely underappreciated. This dude's got a cannon for an arm. And when he throws the ball, it doesn't even look like he's trying. And yet it's like 100 miles per hour. Like, the stat casts come out on these throws and I'm like, he's not even trying. So like, and he probably also gets hurt a little bit, at least park adjusted stats, because he doesn't have to cover a whole lot of ground in right field in Yankee Stadium, but he can get after it. I mean, he's got sneaky speed for a guy who's that big, and he can run some balls down out there. So everybody knows about the bat, but I want to emphasize this guy's actually a really great defender as well.
Yeah, and he still strikes out, a good amount, but he has gotten it slightly more under control as opposed to his 2016, 2017, 2018 seasons. It's down about 5%, from last year to those years. So I mean, he's just a very well-rounded player and probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, but at the same time is kind of overrated because of the New York media. So it's like this weird juxtaposition Aaron Judge faces from so many people just because of, the New York media and the market and the team. If you play for the Mets, it might not be as bad because, little brother, but whatever. All right, moving on to our top four. Obviously, I think everyone knows what's coming with these top four, but the order is what's important here. Number 4 on our rankings is Ronald Acuna Jr. And I had him Ryan and I had the same exact top 4. We both had him at number 4. For me personally, I would probably put him higher, so top 3. But the ACL is very concerning because who knows? With today's modern medicine, obviously ACLs are not as bad as they once were, but it's still something to be concerned about in my mind. That being said, he's a perennial 40-40 candidate. Like we talked about 30-30 potential with Cedric Mullins. He's a 40-40 candidate, legitimately. He almost hit it in 2019. He was 41 and 37. So he was very, very close. And it sounded like it's something he wants to achieve. He really wanted to hit that 40-40 mark and fell just short with 3 stolen bases shy of it. And, last year he played in 82 games. He hit 24 home runs, 17 RBIs, 17 stolen bases. So he was sort of teetering with that mark yet again. But we've seen, at least parts of Ronald Acuna in 4 seasons now, a couple of shortened seasons due to COVID and injuries. But if you look at his career slash lines, 281, 376, 549 for a 925 OPS, there's reason to be legitimately hyped about Ronald Acuna if you're a baseball fan or specifically a Braves fan in general. Like, he's one of the game's best. He's only going to his age 24 season. So, I mean, he has the youth on his side in terms of recovery and, hitting his prime. But if he still has room to go to hit his prime, I mean, we're talking about an all-time great. Before he got hurt last year, he had a 990 OPS and then 394 on base percentage. So he was on pace for another monstrous season. And the Braves won the World Series without him. So it's just like, holy crap. Like, there's just constant insult to injury if you're a Nats fan. Ryan, did you have him at number 4 because of the injury too? Or do you think that's inevitably where he settles in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, so he was one of 2 players that I am excusing the injury for. Even if he played a full season, I probably would have kept him at 4. He is a very, very special talent. We all know that. He is very good. I'm not too concerned about his ACL, to be honest with you. Like, you're not cool unless you tear your ACL. It's very common. It might impact his speed a little bit in the first couple months that he's back. That's the only thing to really worry about. Defense might take a little bit hit, but that's okay. He's not going to be playing center field right away. He's going to be DHing for a while, as well as they get him back up to full speed, because running, shifting, and changing stuff like that is the last step when you're coming off an ACL injury. But Ronald Acuna is very special. He is a true 5-tool player. He is one of the generational players right now, and there are different generations, but he is very special 5-tool player. He has fantastic raw power, and his ability to get on pretty good makes him very dangerous. Like you said, he is a 40-40 potential. That's almost unheard of. And he honestly is on a Hall of Fame track if he keeps this up the rest of his career. Can't really say anything negative about him. Like, he's just a good all-around player.
Talk about his contract.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, if you want to say something negative.
Yeah.
But no, he's very, very good. And I'm trying to do the quick math here. What age he'll be when he's it's 27 and 2027 and 2028 team option. So he's not going to be a free agent for 6 more years. So he will be 30 by the time he hits free agency, which isn't the end of the world. But I mean, he is on quite the team-friendly deal right now. Trey, where did Ronald Acuna Jr. wind up for you?
I had Acuna at number 5, and for me, it was pretty much a toss-up between him and Judge. They could have gone either way. He would have been higher had he not had his major injury. That's really the only reason why I put him below Judge, is just to see how he's going to recover from that. And he's definitely going to miss at least, I think, a month, right? Is that right? I think I saw that.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be a surprise.
The plan is for him to start DHing in late April, and then late May, early June to try him in the field.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if he's going to miss a little bit of time, I was just a little cautious to put him any higher, but his ceiling is the best, honestly. Like when it was Soto versus Acuna and like 19, and Acuna kind of had the edge a little bit. And then last year, obviously he got injured. So Soto kind of took the spotlight. I'm very excited for that battle to reignite. With all the guys in this top 5, they all kind of, in the batter's box at least, strike fear into the hearts of the opponents and the fans. And there is no guy that I watched where I'm never more scared than when Ronald Acuna Jr. steps in the batter's box, because I feel like at any given time he's just going to hit an absolute nuke. And I don't know why it's him specifically that gets me like that. I mean, obviously he's very, very good, but I'd rather face, like, I don't know. I'd rather face Trout than Acuna. That's just like in my own weird brain. I'm so much more scared of Acuna for some reason. No idea why.
Maybe because he's more flashy about it. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's like,
yeah, and
Trout's kind of like a silent killer almost. Somehow.
Yeah, and the Nats obviously play the Braves a lot, so that probably probably has something to do with it. But yeah, he just strikes fear into my heart every time I see him. I'm like, dude, this dude's just gonna go yard every time against the Nats. But he's just an excellent player, and I hope that he stays healthy this season.
Yep, me too. Well, sort of. Sort of.
Well, it's
like
if
he wants to miss the series against the Nats, that's perfectly fine.
Honestly, it doesn't even matter because the Nats are gonna win like 50 games this year.
Yeah, that is also unfortunately true as well. All right, moving on to number 3. Speaking of another division rival, that is one Bryce Harper. Obviously, a very polarizing player amongst Nats fans and the Twitter community as a whole. Actually, not just NL East fans or teams. It's kind of as a whole with how polarizing Bryce Harper is. But you can't deny the stats. He did kind of get over the hump and win another MVP last year, although there was a couple seasons where he was very deserving. I think it was that 2017 season where he probably would have won if he didn't get hurt. I mean, he finished in 12th when it was all said and done. So, it's tough to say. But last year led the league in doubles, led the league in slugging, led the league in OPS and OPS plus. So, the talent has always been there. He's not overrated. Like, can we just please finally put that to bed? I don't think any of the 3 of us here were ever saying he was overrated, but I'm hoping we can finally say for certain that he's not overrated, as a whole baseball community. Obviously MVP last year, like I said. If you want to look at the stats as a whole, 5.9 more, 309 batting average, 429 on base percentage, which is obviously phenomenal, 615 slugging for 1044 OPS, 35 home runs, 84 RBIs for that very mediocre Phillies team. But Bryce Harper is a dude. Like, he can do everything. Like, and he's I can just go on and on about Bryce Harper, but the fact of the matter is, like, he's very good, and I should have extended him. It's so stupid that he's going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Philly now, which is painful. But he is a 40 WAR in 10 years? Oh, it is 10 years. God, he's been in the league 10 years. That's so weird. But 40 WAR in 10 years, and he's only entering his age 29 season, so he's more than on track to be a Hall of Famer. And he's going to go in as a Philly, which sucks. But Ryan, how are you feeling about old friend Bryce Harper?
Yeah, Bryce's like career trajectory and how everyone views him is so fascinating. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when he was 16, seen as the chosen one, came out, lit the world on fire, was an all-star, won Rookie of the Year his rookie season. Everyone's like, this guy's the real freaking deal. Followed that up with a great 2013, got hurt. His 2015 was the best active season still that we've seen based on OPS plus, but then kind of struggled with injuries and underperforming. Should have won MVP in 2017, slipped on the bag, underperformed in 2018, underperformed in 2016. So everyone's like, this guy's really, really overrated. He struggled slightly in 2019, but he found his groove and he's reached his potential these last 2 seasons to the point where now he's honestly underrated. Since the start of 2020, players have a better WRC plus than Bryce Harper, Juan Soto. Players with a better walk percentage than Bryce Harper, Juan Soto. Players with a better weighted on OBA than Bryce Harper, Juan Soto. And no player in baseball has a higher OPS since the start of 2020 in baseball than Bryce Harper. He has reached his potential in what he is these last 2 seasons. The lineup has gotten better. You can't avoid him as much as they did in Washington. Example, he had 17. He's only walked, his most walks in Philly was 100 in 2021. That lineup is going to keep protecting him. They're going to have to keep pitching to him, and he's going to keep hitting his potential that we have seen. Slugging might not be as high as it was 615. That's just absolutely absurd. A guy, you're not going to slug 600 every single year, but he's going to continue being elite. And yeah, it sucks.
God, he had a 649 slugging back in that 2015 season. That's so stupid.
No, like I'm not
that whole
joking.
entire season is just stupid.
His 2015 season is the best season we've seen from an active player. Like, that's not an exaggeration.
460 on base percentage to go with it. Like, and obviously 330 batting average if you're a batting average purist. That 2015 season is absurd. But you mentioned like the line of protection, and people want to point out 2019 as to, he doesn't deserve that contract or whatever, but he didn't really have much protection in Philly then. Like, Rhys Hoskins was his biggest protection, and then they added Real Muto, and now they're adding Schwarber and Castellanos. And, we're going to make fun of the Phillies all the live long day because they're the definition of mediocrity. But fact of the matter is, like, Bryce is very, very good, and he's only going to get better with the amount of protection that he now has. And they're not going to have to hit Real Muto right behind him to protect him. Like, they're going to have legitimate home run power. And I love Real Muto, but they're going to have legitimate home run power threats behind him. So they're going to have to pitch to Bryce Harper, and he's going to make them pay. But Ryan, you mentioned a guy that was the only guy better than Bryce Harper in several statistics.
Oh, I don't get to talk about Bryce?
Oh, no. So I'm so sorry, Trey. I'm so sorry. What are your thoughts on Bryce Harper?
I had him at number 3 as well. I love Bryce Harper, and I never really stopped liking him, even when he went to Philly, if I'm being honest.
Same.
But, there was maybe an argument if you were a hater, and if this was your narrative that he was overrated, after he had the one amazing 2015 breakout. And then if you just kind of ignored the 2017, you could be a hater and say that he's like not that great. But now he's done it twice. So there's really you can't really point to anything. He's had 2 incredible seasons, and he's won the MVP twice. That's not overrated. So, but yeah, so, I mean, like you said, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. It's pretty obvious at this point. 2-time MVP, 40 WAR. He's not 30 years old yet, which is just silly. But obviously Harper is an elite player, and we are very lucky to have 3 amazing outfielders in the NL East to watch. Yeah, I mean,
extremely fortunate.
Lucky in terms of watching, and then unlucky in terms of results against us.
What's absolutely nuts about that, though?
What's up?
The Nats almost signed Acuna, so they could have had all 3.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
The Nats were.
I remember that.
The Nats were the favorite for Acuna, and they were about to sign him, but then the Braves went higher, and so Acuna came back to the Nats and was like, "If you match or go higher, I'll sign here." Worst talent scout evaluator of all time was like, "Nah, you're not worth that." And spoiler alert, he was worth that and a lot more. So yeah, the Nats almost had Acuna, so they could have had all 3.
Cool.
That would have been something. And then they could have traded Victor Robles for all these other just some bullshit. All right, but back to my transition that I attempted to use before. There was one guy. There was one guy, the sole guy better than Bryce Harper, the only guy better than Bryce Harper in some of these categories, and that is Juan Soto, a guy we know very well, a guy we are trying to extend, but inevitably will see depart in free agency, as do most Nats superstars. Last year was obviously his best year. The MVP still eludes him. Eludes him. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. Just when you look at a word and you look at it so much that it seems like it's spelled wrong, Like that just happened in my head.
Yeah, and also you have to say way more words than either of us, so that's okay.
Well, I find myself rambling because I'm trying to read stats as I'm talking, so I'm like filling in naturally. But anyways, more bad radio on my part. Last year, I mean, hard to say this, but it was his best year yet, and he's probably still only getting better. 151 games played, 313, 465 on base percentage, led the league, by the way. 534 for a 999 OPS. That's so unaesthetically pleasing. Like I just one more point.
Oh yeah, no, it's 1,000. So annoying.
God, well, 175 OPS, 7.1 WAR. He's phenomenal. I'm just gonna talk about his plate discipline, and now obviously everyone knows it, but his plate discipline at such a young age, that's something where you can point to and be like, that's gonna age so exceptionally well, because that's almost the foundation of his game. Just how good in disciplined he is at the plate. That's something that's going to age well, and that's something you can be like, oh, I have no problem giving him a 15-year deal, because if that's his true foundation, he will be just fine. It's not like it's his speed or power. Power ages a little bit better than some other stuff, but it can dip at times. But plate discipline is something truly remarkable to have at age 19, 20, 21, 22 now. For Juan Soto, he is one of, if not the best in the game at that. His 2020 season was also stupid, but that was a COVID season, and he, I guess, didn't qualify for the MVP or whatever in some guys' minds. But his 2021 season was very, very good as well. I got the hiccups. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Juan Soto? And more specifically, what does he need to do to truly be that best outfielder in baseball and best player in baseball?
Yeah, so Soto came up in 2018, lit the world on fire, had a very, very impressive season for a 19-year-old. Everyone was like, is it just that rookie coming out hot, or is this legit? Struggled in the first half of 2019, and then the second half of 2019 was his coming out party. You know what we did in the playoffs, how great he was. Youngest player, hit 3 home runs or more in the World Series. In 2020, he just absolutely lit the world on fire, almost a 1.2 OPS. The argument everyone started talking about, like everyone was talking about his plate discipline and how special he is. And they're like, this guy's the best hitter in baseball. He had a 217 OPS plus in 2020, which is absurd, but it was only 47 games. It was a month. Mm-hmm. So the argument was, can he do that over a full season? Spoiler alert, he can't. He did it again in 2021, and he did that with really no one around him in the lineup. Like Schwarber sucked except for the 1 month. Josh Bell was pretty bad until the second half. Trey Turner was above him, got traded. He did that with no help in the lineup as well, which makes him so special. And people use the term generational talent. Juan Soto is probably maybe above that. He does stuff that like we see offensively that we haven't seen since Mike Trout, obviously, but before him, Ted Williams, Barry Bonds as well.
Yeah.
But Juan Soto is the only player in baseball right now who has a legit argument to potentially overtake Mike Trout as the best player in baseball. We've seen what he can do offensively. If he can do that for 2 more seasons, they're very close. They're in the conversation as well. Probably in 5 years, if he keeps doing this, he's going to be the best player in baseball. But as it stands right now, Juan Soto is the only player that can rival and have a legitimate conversation to overtake Mike Trout, which is very, very crazy because Mike Trout's been in the league 12 years and that hasn't been a thing. And here we are in Juan Soto. And yeah, he struggled last year, only a 999 OPS. Guy's absolute scum.
Terrible. Washed.
Probably should do better. His OPS plus dropped 40. I mean, he sucks. Not impressed. 465 OPS on base, whatever. He's all right.
I mean, that dropped 25 points from
so
he's declining. Clearly. He's declining.
Wow. Look at his slugging drop.
Oh man. Trey, I have a feeling that he might have come in at number 1. Okay, all right.
Yeah, no, even I couldn't do that. All right, so yeah, he's number 2. I'll get into that when I talk about Trout. Spoiler alert, he's number 1, guys. I don't know if anyone knew, but yeah. So I think Juan Soto is the only player right now who could maybe Acuna too, if he stays healthy, to be fair, but who could, reach the season Bryce Harper had in 2015. I feel like it's doable for Juan Soto because you look at the numbers and I mean, his slugging percentage for his career is 550. That's boosted a little bit from that 2020 season. So he had a 430 or a 534 slugging percentage last year. And I think that is definitely possible that could go into the 600s for a season. I feel like it's definitely possible because you guys remember the first half of last year, he wasn't really hitting for much power. So he still got to a 534 slugging percentage and a 999 OPS without, hitting that well. I mean, he only had 11 home runs, I believe, before the All-Star break. So it's entirely doable for him to reach that mark. And when he does, he's going to win the MVP. And I think it's going to be this season.
Well, spoiler alert for our season predictions. All right. Number one, obviously that is Mike Trout. I don't have to really tease it too much. I will just say this about Mike Trout. He is number one for me, no matter what happens, until someone proves they're worthy of taking it from him, because he has been otherworldly. If you're trying to find something above generational, like what Ryan was saying, he has been otherworldly ever since he stepped foot into the league. There's an alternate universe where he's a 7-time MVP winner because he's come in second place 4 different times. And he already has 3 MVP wins. Like, there's an alternate universe where Mike Trout has 7 MVPs in the first 8 or 9 years of his career. Like, that's how good Mike Trout has been. And obviously with the COVID year and then him being injured last year, people kind of forget and they're looking for hot takes that they're going to say Soto or Acuna or anyone else is better. But no, Mike Trout is firmly number one. I didn't even really have to think about it. And I'm hoping no one else does either. I know you two aren't, but just generally speaking, I hope no one else does either, because Mike Trout is by far and away the best player in baseball, and it's not really close in my mind. And I thought it was funny how for a while there, people were trying to poke holes in his game, saying he couldn't hit home runs. And it felt like he was like, all right, fuck you guys, and was really on pace for the home run lead in 2019. And then he kind of fell off a little bit, but he still hit 45. So it's like he can do anything he wants on the baseball field, and he's going to be the best at it. And there's nothing else, us or anyone else can do about it. Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a conversation.
No.
There's generational talents, and then there's Mike Trout. Like, what Mike Trout does is just absolutely absurd. Like, he has a career OPS over 1 in 11 years. That's historic. Like, the man no roids. He's just pure talent. Like, the guy consistently,
and he's from New Jersey, Jesus,
and he likes the weather, freaking nerd. Like, just looking at his numbers, like, they make no sense. He's so good. He had 4 straight years with the OPS. An on base at 440 or above. He consistently is flirting with 600 slugging. His OPS, like I said, always over 1. His worst OPS in the season was 2014, which, by the way, 2014 was the worst season of his career. And he won MVP, which is just so stupid. He only had a 939 OPS that year because he sucks. I guess sometimes you got to take a year off, but he is just so stupid. And something people don't really talk about, he has a 76.1 WAR.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
In 11 seasons.
He might have 2 Hall of Fame careers.
Literally, if he's healthy this year, he's going to pass Ken Griffey Jr. in WAR. Like, he's already above a lot of Hall of Famers in WAR. Like, I'm literally going down the list right now in career leaders. He's above Johnny Bench, Hall of Famer, Sam Crawford, Hall of Famer, Old Hoss Radbourne, Hall of Famer, Frank Thomas, Hall of Famer, Pug Gavin, Hall of Famer, Jim Thome, Larry Walker, Rafael Palmeiro, Derek Jeter, Johnny Bench. I can keep going of Hall of Famers that he is above. He's absurd. Like, everyone's
only 30. He's only 30.
Exactly. He's only 30, and he doesn't have to play another game in his life, and he's a Hall of Famer. Mike Trout's kind of like getting that territory where people got with LeBron, where he was the best player for so long that people got bored of it, and they're like, all right, who's the best player? Like, everyone's like, oh, this guy's the best player in the league, just because they're kind of tired of it. Like, LeBron lost like MVP votes because people were tired of constantly giving it to him. The same thing happened with Mike Trout a couple times. He should have more MVPs than he does, but voter fatigue is a thing. When he's healthy, he is the best player. And he's the best player in the league, and he's already an all-time great, and he is on track to finish with a top 5 career WAR. He is an all-time great, and more people need to pay attention to Los Angeles Angels, and it's a complete travesty that they're wasting him.
Yeah, only made the playoffs once. So that's the Skip Bayless argument to it. It's like, oh, he's only made the playoffs once, so he can't be the best player. Someone was legitimately trying to make that argument, and I can't remember who. Oh man, that just
I don't want to know who's trying to make that argument.
No, someone legitimately was making an argument that Mike Trout could not be regarded as the game's best because he's only made the playoffs once. Damn.
Yeah, that's all his fault though. So.
Oh, Ryan just texted me saying who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave that off the podcast. But, yeah. Anyways, Mike Trout, very, very, very good. I was gonna say something to back up Ryan, but I don't need to. Mike Trout is very good. Trey, what are your thoughts on Mike Trout?
I had Mike Trout in my honorable mentions list. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, it's everything you guys said. He's an all-time great at age 30. You don't need much more than that. So it's just the thing of just hopefully he can stay on the field, because he had some slight injuries in 19 where he missed some games, and then obviously he had the calf strain from hell last year and couldn't get back out there. But when he played, he was stupid. 333, 466, 624 in only 36 games, obviously. But it's not like he hasn't done it before. So, as long as he's on the field, he's number one. It's pretty simple. The only guy who's really approaching are probably the last 3 guys we talked about that have that potential to eventually become the number one.
Yeah, it's potential eventually right now. Right.
Eventually, exactly. So he's still the alpha, and he should be.
Yeah, even when he's not on the field, he's still like top 3. He's just so freaking good. And it sucks that we lost like a prime year or a full year of Trout's prime due to COVID and then injury. So I'm hoping 2022 he can really reestablish himself.
Please stay healthy, dude.
Yeah, like please. You have Shohei Ohtani, who just won the MVP last year. I don't know if Shohei will be able to replicate it, but like there's reason to believe the Angels might be more competitive than they have been in years past. And I'm hoping Mike Trout is healthy to be a part of it. Well, if he's healthy, or if the Angels make the playoffs, it will be because Mike Trout's healthy. That's for sure. All right. I know we're approaching 2 hours if we hadn't already, but just really quickly, some honorable mentions that I had. And if you guys want to go into detail on any of them or add to it, feel free. Byron Buxton was a guy I had in my top 15, inevitably dropped him out because of games played. He was a phenomenal last year, but he only played in like 87 games. Or no, I might have been less. I think it was 61 games. And he's only played in more than 87 games or more than 92 games, once in his career in his 7 years now. So it's like if he puts it all together health-wise, he's going to be phenomenal because he had a OPS over 1,000 last year. Another guy, JD Martinez, he's probably a little bit too old at this point, not that we're being ageist again, but he's declining from his great years, but I think he deserved an honorable mention. Randy Rosarena, not as like flashy as far as offense stats as some of these young guys, but I think he's deserving of an honorable mention. Ryan actually had him 13, and then Teoscar Hernandez, who I like a lot.
Yeah, I had him
but
as well.
I was going to put him in my top 15. Ryan had him 15, but then I thought of the minor league effect, so it's like, oh, I haven't been using that previously. I know Ryan, you have. I haven't been using that previously, but I needed a reason to kind of narrow down my list from 20 to 15. So he was just an honorable mention for me. Did you guys have anyone else?
Well, I actually had Byron Buxton in my top 15. I had him at number 11, and I also had Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez. I put in my honorable mentions just because I don't really know what to do with them. Kike played mostly outfield, so it actually worked for him, but Chris Taylor obviously plays everywhere. But I wanted to just give those two guys a shout out specifically because they're two of the best utility guys in the league right now.
Yeah. It was tough to put them because now we're through all the position guys, and there are guys like you just mentioned that we didn't have in our top 10 or in this case top 15, but are very good. It's just they're utility guys. If we had a utility ranking, they would be 1 and 2 and whatnot, but they don't. So is life. All right, this week, we're going to this week. We will tackle starting pitchers. That is another great conversation that'll come out later in the week. And obviously we get to really dive into the elite, but then there is kind of a drop off there. So we'll talk about who makes the cut and who still has stuff to prove. And with pitchers, sometimes more than any other position, you can't have that one outlier year that puts you into like elite company, but then you fall off. So it will be interesting to talk more about starting pitchers, and then we'll wrap the ranking season next week with relievers before we head into our top 100, which will be exclusively a YouTube video. And then we gear up for the season. Opening day is April 8th, I believe, whatever that Thursday is. So winding down with the off-season stuff as we gear up for the season. But appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Trey and Ryan, for putting your list together. It was a good conversation. You guys got anything else before we head out for the day?
Nats suck.
Yeah, season's dead. It's over. It's over and done.
But that's okay. I'll watch other teams.
Yeah.
Well, and Juan Soto's at bats.
Yeah, this is the year to buy MLB TV for other teams. Like, I think there's probably some people that didn't buy MLB TV because it's blacked out anyways for the Nats. This is the year you do buy it because you're gonna want to watch other baseball that's not the Nats. So, yeah, this is the year. Ryan, you got anything else?
No, Nats stink.
Yep, Nats stink.
We're all pretty much all in agreement on that.
Yeah, they're holding out a hope for a guy that won't be here until 2027. So the next 5 years will be great, guys. don't you worry. All right. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Half Street High Heat. We're in the middle of our March Madness uniform bracket. We are heading into the Sweet 16. Some of the 1 seeds have already fallen, so we got true madness going on. Be sure to check out our page on Tuesday. I'm not quite sure what day this will release yet, but if you are listening to this on release day, check this out on our page and see, get in on the action for the Sweet 16 voting for whatever the best uniform in baseball is. There are 2 Nationals representatives still alive, one being the Navy alternates from the 2019 run that are still not available to purchase widely anywhere. So great job, Nats. And then the Baby Blue Expos alternates that they wore that one time, but they are pretty sweet in their defense. So there are Nats representatives still alive, and the Nats might win something for once. We'll see. So be sure to check that out, and obviously check out our site at halfstreethighheat.com. All the latest blogs, news, articles, and what have you from our great writing team. Monty's still killing it with his college baseball coverage as well. So be sure to check that out. But again, appreciate you guys listening. This was a great episode, fun conversation. We will be back on later this week with starting pitchers and talk about that. But in the meantime, let's go baseball. The Nats are dead.